Hey, what's going on? Welcome back. We're going to be doing the Josh and Tyler show. The theme's going to hit in a minute. But before we start that, before Tyler has something important to say, and before we look at my sweet, sweet movie shelf as always, how y'all doing? It's been a while. This is my obligatory intro. We can spin it, we can flip it, we can flop it, we can dippity dop it. We're talking about underrated dramas today. That's going to be the name of the game, and not ABBA from '82. It was '82. I don't know when they did the name of the game, but ABBA was only active till they made a new album. ABBA's pretty sweet though. We got a bunch of underrated dramas coming up. I mean, you don't even have to talk about Velma or know that like The Last of Us is great to know that we are talking underrated. Underrated. Just call me the underrated. Who'll get in the wrestling ring and I'll fight the Undertaker. Actually, maybe he's the Overtaker. I don't even know. All I know is we're excited to be back. We're pumped. We're hyped. We want to be here. We want to do this. We want to make this the best 45 minutes of your life. We want to make you go watch a movie. Maybe it's a movie you haven't seen. Maybe it's a movie you have seen. Maybe I'm walking around and ranting. And maybe Tyler has the greatest beard known to man, except for maybe this. I don't know. This is not even a beard. This is just like scraggly, day old, like something. It's like the grass clippings that just glued to my face. Hey, there's some Pikachus behind me. Let's get to the show.
Hello, I'm Josh. I'm leaning real close to the camera. This is a very personal video.
Well, welcome to the Josh and Tyler Show. We've officially named it the Josh and Tyler Show. I'm here with Tyler. Welcome to the Josh and Tyler Show. Just a special video I'm doing with Tyler. Tyler, how the hell are you, man?
Also the only one that they replayed, because the whole idea of making a new Fantasia was to like mix in old shorts with new shorts, give it more of a variety art house type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
A cookbook title that can also be a film title.
You know I wrote this.
Yes, and I already know the answer. Because there are certain scenes where there is absolutely no sound but all image, and in other scenes where there is image, there is sound but there's no talking for extended periods of time, and yet it never feels boring.
I woke up one morning and thought, oh look, it's Will Ferrell in a comedy dressed like a Viking playing weird, strange music. This looks enjoyable. It is not.
America's Got Talent if it had no talent.
Alright, here we go.
Hello, we just...
Oh, what does this have to do with the movie?
I mean, the setup, the way she's introduced where she's so happy and cheerful and she's this ominous glow, meanwhile they're surrounded by people who are hypnotized into being asleep and are covered by branches
Yeah, they're
and
tree
roots
people.
and shit.
Let's get to the show.
Well, I haven't done this in a long time, have we? Welcome back to the Josh and Tyler Show. I'm Tyler, and normally this is the part where I say there is no perfect movie, but lately I just haven't felt myself. And a lot of that came down to the fact that at first we didn't do this show because Josh and I always had conflicting work schedules, which was always a pain in the ass. And whenever I had a free day to go see a movie with him or to record the show, he was always at the Princess, but not anymore. But even with him becoming a freelancer, I've always just felt afraid to ask him if he wanted to record something or if he wanted to go see a show. There would always be some miscommunication where I wouldn't get back at him after he sent me a message or vice versa. And I always felt shitty about it. Josh, in all of his infinite wisdom, I genuinely don't know how he does it. Always just takes a deep breath, puts the past behind him, and tells me that I worry too much, which, yeah, that is definitely true. But I haven't even been able to record videos as often as I do, mainly because, well, there are a variety of reasons. Probably the big one being my taste in movies has gotten drastically different from so many people that whether I'm polite about it or not, because honestly I can see it going either way. Whenever I make a differing opinion about a movie, there are people who are so quick to judge, and I've let that get to me to the point where even when there are movies that I like, because I don't like them as much as people, I don't get as passionate to write down notes about a review, let alone be able to film one. having to rehearse my lines and then record all together has gotten just incredibly frustrating. And as you're going to see during my segments of this list, I am looking other ways as opposed to towards the camera. And there's a couple of reasons for that. For one, I have a new laptop that records, so I can't really see the camera, and I try to look at the green light, but that doesn't always work. And the other is I've been trying this new format where I portray myself as a therapist and a patient in regards to reviewing movies, where the therapist would ask questions that I personally think the audience would like to know, and me being the patient would try to analyze it as best as I can, which if anyone's going to tell me that's not how therapy sessions work, I know. That's really the only way I know how to do it. Not to mention, there are just so many movies that I don't want to see. Part of it because of the identity politics that center around it. I didn't go see Lightyear, Bros, The Woman King. I'm not going to see The Little Mermaid, Peter Pan and Wendy, or Woman Talking this year because I already know that the message that they're pushing is going to matter more than the entertainment value. I already know what the message is going to be. I know I'm already going to agree with it that it's wrong to treat people differently based on gender, race, sexual orientation, among many other details. And I know for a fact I'm going to disagree with this notion that because I'm not from that demographic or from a demographic known for human suffering, that I'm not going to be able to understand it, which is just such a dumbass notion. Or this notion that if you don't go see the movie, you're somehow an ist or a phobe of some regard, which is fucking lazy. The reason I skipped Bros, Lightyear, and Strange World was not because there were gay characters, but because the gay characters in question, judging by the advertising, were not very interesting. The movies behind them were not very interesting. It felt like their sexuality was the only interesting thing about them. And yeah, you know what? Gay people are not interesting because of their sexual orientation. They're interesting because of the same strengths and weaknesses that other people different from them have. I don't see why that's such a I don't see why that's such a difficult concept for people to understand, especially people my age. Bottom line being, I've let the frustrations of life get in the way of me being myself in these videos. And long story short, this year I'm going to do everything that I can to improve upon that by making at least one video a week on my channel, and hopefully one every 2 weeks on Josh's channel. I don't know how that's really going to go over, but I genuinely hope that I become much more invested and passionate towards making videos and towards life, because not going to lie, when I made my best of the year list on my own channel, I felt happy. And it wasn't until I looked at the numbers of my videos that I really shouldn't be looking at to begin with. I don't understand why I never do. I know for a fact I'm never gonna get that fucking high, but you at least dream or hope for it, don't you? It wasn't until I saw the viewership, the amount of likes and such, and along with some negative comments on other videos that were 5 years ago, and we're putting this down. A guy who has a video of himself shirtless with a porn stash is going to judge me for this. Real class act, huh? I'm not even entirely sure why I'm ranting about this, but I felt like I need to be honest to anyone who's watching this, and especially honest to Josh, because for the past couple of years now, making videos, I think, has made both of us a lot happier with not happier with the situation, but happy enough to deal with the situation of real life. Having him for a best friend the past couple of years has been really awesome. I feel like he's the one friend I have where I feel like I can genuinely say anything and he'll be able to reciprocate that back. And you're a good man, Josh. You were one of the best men I've ever met. some drama that I just went through, and it's very fitting because in this video we're going to be talking about our top 10 most underrated dramas in our opinion, which was one of the coolest topics that Josh messaged me about doing, because honestly there are so many that you could think of, and with mine I am pretty selective, and not and some of them are going to be pretty repetitive in terms of some of the themes and how the movie is presented in terms of structure or visual style, but that's the great thing about doing these videos. You get to sum up what stuff you like about movies versus the ones you don't, what stuff you can watch over and over again in the same format, or genres or types of filmmaking that you wish people would just experiment a little bit more. And why am I still rambling about this? Oh, right, because I don't express myself, so there's that about it. So, let's not waste any more time. Here are our top 10 most underrated dramas.
Let's talk about honorable mentions, because if we're talking about underrated genre, which is drama, the underrated drama, words there, if I may. I was the one who came up with the idea for the list. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Tyler, but this one was like, this is the one that I want. The one subject we'll probably be discussing in future weeks came up by Tyler. But there's a stack. Don't worry, I'm prepared. I've got my coffee and my water, and I've got my IMDb open and my notes. So, like, we are totally set. But let's jump into my honorable mentions here. The Running Kind. And yes, I have the physical version of these, because, you know, I got a little hardcore into VHS these days. You never heard of this movie. It's underrated. Didn't make the top 5, but I really, really like it. I was at Fartflix, and this was one of the ones that I thought here in the middle was Robin Williams. It's not. It does fall into the cliches that you would expect it to, as it's an 80s movie, The Running Kind. It's about this guy who leaves this small town to go and manage a punk band. I guess a pop punk band or new wave or whatever you want to call it around that time. It'd be similar, I guess, probably to maybe post Bangles type music, a little heavier. Walk Like an Egyptian, if you're confused. It's really, really good. It's fantastic. It hits all the cliches. I don't want to spend too much time on that because that's going to be for another video, but I highly recommend you watch this. This movie is honestly pretty perfect. It's honestly pretty perfect. Jesus of Montreal. This is one. Here you go. Jesus of Montreal is a 1991 French-Canadian film about this theater play group that reenacts the resurrection and the death of Jesus through this avant-garde sort of style with their own take on it. And it's them versus religion, religion versus them versus themselves. It's this very, very interesting sort of portrait of what people think it should be and what other people think it should be. It does play both sides a little bit. It obviously follows the theater performers. It's really, really good. I want to save this one for a Canadian film list, but I highly recommend you watch Jesus in Montreal. Then we have The Conversation. Didn't quite make my top 5. Absolutely love this movie. I know. I don't really like The Godfather, and I'm not a big fan of Apocalypse Now. I just watched that one. But The Conversation by Coppola is a very intimate film. Gene Hackman right here. Got my big crunchy case. VHS. Pop that bad boy out. But a man who listens to government tapes, and it revolves around what happened in the square, and basically he starts to lose his mind and thinks the government's listening to him, and he rips out the things in his walls, and it's absolutely fascinating. They recently restored this on 4K, and a couple other things. There's a restoration by Coppola himself through the studio. I highly recommend Conversation. When the Wind Blows. Do you want to be sad? Do you hate yourself? Do you need to watch a movie that's like, wow, life is super depressing? That's why I did make the top 10. This is an animated film from 1986 that has a David Bowie song to open it up. It's fully animated. It's about the horrors of what if World War III would happen. And we get to see this couple. After the war there, they get this warning, this pamphlet, how to prepare for this, set up a mattress, do this quirky older couple that survived World War I and World War II. And now, or World War I, and now it's like the end of World War II. A what if of events. And
And you get to see this couple basically survive nuclear winter because they built this shelter and them slowly disintegrate. And there's some really disturbing stuff when her skin starts to boil and get itchy. And then it just ends, and you're like, what was that? It's beautiful. It's fantastic. It's well written, but it's one of the darkest movies you will ever see. The Russians are coming. Here's another honorable mention. This is, I have to get the year, 1966. So this is Alan Arkin, and it's a dramedy, comedy. I have the Blu-ray here. Thank you. I love Kino Libre. They're great. They put out some great stuff. I have the Run Silent, Run Deep, and they put out The Party and Murder by Death, and a lot of great titles that you just can't get through anyone else. They do put out a lot of stuff. They do 4K now. It's really good. If you ever get a chance and you just have to see Kino Libre, I'm not paid for this. I really like their selection, and their price is pretty good, like $20 for these. These 4 Russians in a submarine get stranded on a small island in Maine, I believe it is, off the top of my head. It's a very dry film as these Russians are trying to get back home and continue with the war theme, I guess, from World War II. All they want to do is rent a boat and fix their submarine and get out of there. But everyone is like fear-mongering, and they're calling in the military and the Navy. And it's over-the-top, dramatic. It's got some really dry comedic moments. I love the poster. You can see that right there. Obviously, I have to flip this back in post because my front camera does this. But it's silly, but it's dramatic, and it's super underrated. It's like what would happen if World War III were to happen in this case. It's almost got some mockumentary aspects too, because it starts and ends with an interview. So I like that. It is a little longer on the drama scale. One that I don't know if Tyler has on his list because I haven't watched this half the video. Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Tom Hanks is absolutely incredible in this sort of like man who's affected by Mr. Rogers, who goes to interview him, is a cynic. It's the guy who plays Perry Mason in the HBO show, which I'm super pumped for. Absolutely adore that show. It's really, really well done. But this, it was really overshadowed by Won't You Be My Neighbor, the doc, which is absolutely incredible. And I 100% agree that that's incredible. I think that this really, really holds a place. It is based upon, I think, a book, but I'm not sure. I don't really read books now unless they're like really old school sci-fi. But this one's really fantastic. It's got a really sweet emotional core, and it's honestly pretty authentic to Mr. Rogers. Here we go. In my big old pack, Marnie, right there. Marnie is absolutely underrated. Let me see if I can find it here. But Marnie is 1964. It's going to be right after James Bond was all the craze. So Hitchcock worked with Sean Connery at that time. And it's the only time he's ever worked with Sean Connery. And it's a... I don't know if they have it here, but I love these 4K box sets. They restored them beautifully, but they're both really bad to each other in the relationship. They treat each other like dirt. One is this way, one is that way. You get the idea. But it's this sort of horror dramatic piece that really plays on your emotions, and it's really the best. It gets under your skin. It's uncomfortable to watch at points, and I think that's what makes it quite excellent. I think that you don't want a drama to be too soothing, too actually, and again, like Where the Wind Blows, it's not one you're going to watch all the time, but it is more rewatchable than Where the Wind Blows. My last nomination is Big Sleep from 1946. I have the crunchy damaged VHS. I collect the silver versions here of this. This is a detective thriller. It's a drama. It's a romance. It's got Bogart. It's better than Casablanca will ever be. I mean, when I get a chance to talk about Bogart, I love Bogart, but Casablanca is just not up there for me. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I enjoy the film, but I'm taking Petrified Forests over Casablanca any day. I'm taking Maltese Falcon. And Big Sleep is one that really people, I guess, sleep on. So I guess, ironically, me talking about the movie with the name in the title. It's just a really well done bogey going like, how you doing today? I'm gonna be a detective piece. Oh, girl, fall in love. And it does hit the cliches, but it's so well done. It's really genre defining for the gangster / drama, because really gangsters didn't have guns, so they mostly did talking. So yeah, Big Sleep. Don't sleep on this one. I mean, get sleep, but don't, you know what I mean.
At number 10, I have The Starling, and this was actually one of the first movies I saw back when TIFF reopened to the public, and within the first 10 minutes, I was already bawling my eyes out, cried another couple times throughout the rest of the movie, And it's an easy movie to get upset about. Melissa McCarthy and Chris O'Dowd are a married couple who are struggling with the loss of a newborn baby they had who died of SIDS, which is also an incredibly easy subject to fuck up, but in my opinion, as much as some people have criticized this movie of being sentimental and manipulative, in my opinion, it handled it with so much restraint, mainly through the acting. I think this is hands down Melissa McCarthy and Chris O'Dowd's best performances they have ever done for one specific reason. There are so many scenes where they have to communicate every emotion they're going through without even saying a word, simply giving this saddened look or disappointed reaction that's supposed to say it all. Kevin Kline, while not really in the movie as much, was also great as the shrink who has since become a veterinarian because he feels as if he lost the intellect and wisdom that he had to be a therapist, but he is forced to confront his own fears on the subject when Melissa McCarthy comes to him with this starling that is nesting in her yard, and through that, he has to force her to face her fears by actually setting an example and in the process learning something that he should already know by now. And the weird thing is the movie doesn't actually criticize him for it. It's rare to see a psychotherapist actually portrayed as a human being as opposed to these flawless, invincible mentors that they're made out to be in movies and TV shows. You don't really have enough shrinks who are on the same line of, say, Dr. Melfi from The Sopranos or Frasier and Niles, who were all flawed human beings, and that was what made them so fascinating and all the more rewarding when we see them actually use their intellect and wisdom towards their patients. Now, after I posted my review of The Starling, I went to Rotten Tomatoes to see what everybody else thought. I had given it a 4.5 out of 5, and to see the 20-something score was absolutely mind-blowing, and not gonna lie, the Hallmark Channel comparisons that a lot of people made towards the movie, it's not exactly unwarranted. It is a schmaltzy story. It is generically filmed with lots of very bright imagery, I guess to offset just how dark the situation is. Not to mention how cheesy, inconsequential, and random the side characters are. And they got a lot of celebrities for these completely pointless 5-minute filler cameos like Timothy Olyphant and Daveed Diggs do absolutely nothing in the movie. But in my opinion, The Starling is what a Hallmark Channel movie should be. Keep the simple story, the identifiable themes, but have actors who can act, dialogue that actually makes sense and feels natural, or, like this movie does, portray so many scenes without dialogue whatsoever. Just visually portray grief. It hits people a hell of a lot more, it's considerably more subtle, and, generally in any movie, it's just the right thing to do.
All right, let's get to the list. I did my honorable mentions. I did all that. And I'm sure we're going to talk about some of the same ones later in the list because I actually just watched Tyler's and went back and be like, oh, I got one of those movies in my honorable mentions. But hey, coming in at number 10, I have the classic 1958 We're in Silent Red Deep. This is Clark Gable. This is the greatest submarine movie. Submarine, where we all live, like the Beatles said. Run Silent Red Deep. I'm a big fan of submarine movies. I like U-57. I like Red October. But this one is possibly the absolute best of it. The ending's not perfect. That's why it's at number 10. I think the ending could have been done better. But an aging submarine captain played in Clark Gable decides to go on a boat. And it's their submarine, and they're trying to hunt down basically this thing that's killing all the submarines and boats in the area. And it's more of a relationship drama between him and Burke Lancaster, and it works really, really well. I personally I want to pick up the Kino Libra. I think I have it up there. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just grabbed the DVD because it was closer. Honestly, it's one of my favorite movies some days, if you ask me. Some days I'll talk about this one and be like, it's perfect. It's a perfect movie. And I'm like, no, it's not a perfect movie. Like Tyler says, there is no perfect movie. Maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe that's Tyler's number one. But this one here is very well done. It's great in the combat. It's great in the acting. Clark Gable, one of his finest roles. I think his finest role is absolutely Misfits. That one definitely gets the attention it deserves because it has, Marilyn Monroe. So, I mean, and then there's Niagara with Monroe, which is absolutely incredible too. But again, all Marilyn Monroes get attention. So maybe the Monkey Trouble one. I don't think anyone really is like super into Monkey Trouble. But I started watching this, maybe 2009, A&E, when you have cable, if you have cable, if you know what cable is.
would play movies at midnight, but they'd always play the same movie over and over again. And I watched this one when I couldn't sleep. I don't know, 2009, 2008, and I was like, whoa. That is a really, really good submarine movie. It shows you the submarine. It's very technical. It's got great acting. It's just a really, really great movie. Run silent, run deep, y'all. Run silent, run deep.
At number 9, I have Wonderstruck. There aren't that many dramas or experimental movies that are aimed towards kids, and this is honestly the only one I can really think of. It's based off of Brian Selznick's novel, and Selznick is also known for writing Hugo, or at least the novel based on Hugo, and it tells two stories set 50 years apart, and in each one, a deaf child runs away from their home in search of a long-lost parent in New York who can helpfully help them deal with the situation. And the novel was very unique in that the boy, Ben, who wasn't actually born deaf, his entire story is portrayed verbally like any other novel, but Rose, the main girl who was born deaf from the beginning, her entire story is literally illustrated with no words whatsoever, and the movie is equally clever in the stylistic choices of differentiating the timelines apart. In Ben's storyline in the 70s, there is sound and there is dialogue, but when scenes have to be told from his perspective, everything goes mute. And with Rose, her storyline is literally filmed like a silent movie with grainy black and white. There's no sound whatsoever save for a piano music. There aren't even any title cards, weirdly enough. Everything verbally is communicated through Rose's notebook that she needs in order to get by with other people in terms of conversation. And even though these stylistic traits are different, the movie as a whole is consistently visually told. Rose and Ben equally discover information with newspaper clippings, mementos that carry key information, or just visualizing their personalities with the way that Rose is very passionate towards drawing and miniature making, while Ben loves to collect anything that holds his interest, and some of the collectibles that he features actually does come back into the story during very key crucial moments. It's a subtle way of portraying a mystery drama that's not about solving a crime, but really solving one's family lineage and history in regards to that. And the performances are very good too. You got Oaks Fagley, who I gotta say, I saw him in The Fablemans as the bully, and wow, dude has aged incredibly, but this still ranks among some of his best work. And Millie Simmons, I love A Quiet Place, and I love her in it, and it's a movie I would much rather watch, but in Wonderstruck, Millicent Simmons, her character does not know sign language, doesn't know lip reading, doesn't know speaking, so she has to portray everything through her body language, and she does it remarkably in a way that most adult actors could never do.
Coming in at number 9, we've got ourselves musicals. I consider dramas because they fall in love, it's dramatic, it's all that stuff. Take Me Out to the Ball Game. I'll take this over Singing in the Rain. I'm a horrible person, I know. Take Me Out to the Ball Game is Frank Sinatra, Gene Kelly, Esther Williams. It's got the general Rat Pack. Not Rat Pack, like the Gene Kelly pack or whatever. I'm thinking of Robin and the Seven Hoods myself for the Rat Pack there. But this is a wonderful, 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 wonderful film. They did On the Town together as well. It's like the same crew. So we basically follow 3 ball players. They're playing for a team, and one is Gene Kelly's character's like, I don't know if I'm going to join the other team, and if I practice at night, and if I can do this. And they all got to win the World Series at the end. But along the way, we get Water Ballet with Esther Williams. That's why this one's on the list and not On the Town, which I love On the Town. I think it has amazing songs. But I think that Esther Williams bringing Water Ballet to this realm of musical is really, really wonderful. It reminds me a lot of, if you haven't seen Esther Williams' Water Ballet, Great Muppet Caper, the Miss Piggy, your love, Miss Piggy, whatever his name is. He's pretty cool in there. Color of Their Hands Now. I love that movie. And then you get the wonderful musical numbers with Gene Kelly, Frank Sinatra. I'm trying to remember the last guy's name. I always forget his name. What is his name? Maybe it's Edward Arnold. Anyway, he's the third guy who's in all these movies. They did 3 or 4 together right there in the 40s and stuff. And this is from, what year is Taking Me Out to the Ball Game? 1949. Taking y'all back. I'm sure you remember that year, right? You're like, hey, I remember 9. But you got Orion to Goldberg, which is really catchy, and It's Fate, about the different, like, Aquarius and stuff. Really, really, really catchy tune. Wish I could find the soundtrack for this on vinyl. It's just a really delightful, fun, dramatic film because it does have Gene Kelly gets to do more of dramatic because like in Singing in the Rain they have to save the musical, but it's very lighthearted fare. But he really has to make a choice in the third act if he's going to do this acting career or if he's going to play for his baseball team. So it's a very dramatic moment, but it's the most probably underrated. And we also get that, where did you get that hat? Folks ask me every day. And he's singing about Irish and being a hat. And it's fantastic. It's got some of the best dance sequences. Like if you're going to go Gene Kelly, I mean, you have It's Always Fair Weather for roller skates, or Singing in the Rain, of course. On the Town is really spectacular for Prehistoric Man. But this one here with Esther Williams really just holds a special place in the underrated genre.
At number 8, if you guys are big fans of Top Gun Maverick, director Joseph Kosinski made, in my opinion, one of the most criminally underrated biopics ever, Only the Brave. It's the rare true life movie where you can watch it even without knowing it's based on real events, and you can still identify with the figures being portrayed. And the nicest thing I can say about how the script pays tribute to the Granite Mountain hotshots is that they never felt like cliched stock characters. It genuinely felt like I was watching real life people on screen, which is insane because you have Josh Brolin, Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly, Jeff Bridges, James Badge Dale, Taylor Kitsch, among many others. And Brolin, Teller, and surprisingly Kitsch especially give some of their most nuanced work yet. At first, when I saw Taylor Kitsch interacting with Miles Teller, who is the younger, least experienced, and is also an ex-con drug addict, Kitsch is made out to be this generic Adam Sandler type bully, but the more time Kitsch and Teller spend getting to know each other, having to solve problems on the job, the more they genuinely respect each other, which is a storyline that you never see in any other movie. And that's the thing. Everything felt fresh and original. The dialogue within the script is written to feel like normal conversations. I said in my original review that listening to these guys talk felt like me chatting with my coworkers, and to this day, it still feels that way. The movie structures equal amounts of time to focus on the individual lives that each of these people are before really showing them what they're like on the job. And it led to an incredibly heartbreaking climax that I will not spoil, but all I will say is, if you don't know anything about this real life story, the Granite Mountain hotshots, do not, I repeat, do not look up what happens until after you watch the movie. You will be blown away by how much of it really did happen, and just what a tragedy it all led to.
Coming in at, what is this, number 8? Number 8. We're at number 8. Last Night in Soho. I bought this on a whim, actually. There was a Black Friday sale or something, and this was like $6, and I was like, I like Edgar Wright. I really like Scott Pilgrim. I think I got Scott Pilgrim out there somewhere, etc. I like Scott Pilgrim vs. World. I like the whatever the Blood and Ice Cream trilogy is, whatever you call that thing. Hot Fuzz and such. I enjoy those movies, but this one really surprised me. I thought I'll buy a new Edgar Wright movie and see where that goes. But I was really pleasantly surprised when I watched this, and I was like, wow, I wish I'd seen that in theaters. And this is probably going to be on the wow, I wish I'd seen that in theaters, honorable mentions list. But this is a drama about Thomas Mackenzie from Jojo Rabbit. Fantastic performance of this. And she goes to Paris to be a student, leaves her grandmother behind. She's dealing with her mother issues, and she goes to stay in this house that transports her back, where Anya Taylor-Joy and Matt Smith are doing, well, you know, you got to watch the movie to find out. But the way it paints the sequences and the way it puts it together and the way it cuts, like, I swear I didn't see this movie before I made Saving Grace. I swear. Because there's a lot of concepts and ideas that I was, like, using, and then I watched this and I'm like, oh, mirrors. Hey. Oh, flashbacks. Seeing someone else, you know. Yeah, so, and I think this movie is artistically possibly one of his best. Because the cinematography, the way it's so ordinary and plain in regular life, but then when you go into this dream world that she goes into when she falls asleep every night with Anya Taylor-Joy, who's fantastic in this film, who's fantastic in, well, pretty much everything she does. It's just visually eye-popping. You can easily tell what's the difference between it, and then you get the difference between the characters there, and she's slowly becoming the other characters, and is really, really, really good. Like, I cannot understate how good this movie is. I was really, really surprised for, like, the $15 4K about how good this movie was. It's probably the most underrated in Edgar Wright's discography, because everyone like loves Baby Driver except for that one thing, and they love Hot Fuzz and like World's End, really good. I was doing short. There's Aqua Teen, playing Phantasm there. But like this one is possibly his most interesting film, his most psychological film. As much as I love Scott Pilgrim, this some days is always going to top it. I loved Last Night in Soho. I think I'm the only one. I think I'm the only one who thought this was really, really good. That ending is like pitch perfect. I mean, like, you can't go wrong with this. And the soundtrack, like, I love 60s music, so like, where else I'm gonna go, you know?
Number 7 is one of my favorite A24 movies ever, and one most people have probably never heard of. It's called Waves, and it's extremely hard to give a synopsis without spoiling a lot of the movie, because it starts off on this, what you assume is the main character, played by Kelvin Harrison Jr., this incredibly promising high school varsity athlete going through a series of dark struggles that can affect his scholarship, his relationship with his family, and his girlfriend, all for the worse. And then out of nowhere, during the last third, the focus switches to his little sister, played by Taylor Russell, who was mainly a background character for the first hour or so. We see how her and their father, Sterling K. Brown, react to the consequences of Harrison Jr.'s actions, how they're able to process it, how much were they really involved in what led to his overall decisions, and how they can find a way to move on, find this sense of closure and forgiveness. It was a little jarring at first, but once it became clear what the idea behind it was, and seeing these characters from a totally new perspective led to my favorite teary-eyed moments within the entire film, particularly where Russell develops this sweet as hell romance with Lucas Hedges, who gives one of his best performances ever. And this great father-daughter dynamic between Russell and Brown. Sterling K. Brown was excellent portraying this tough love father who he's one of those dads who's only tough because he wants to make sure his children take life seriously so that they don't have to live with the exact same struggles that he had to go through, and he has to reflect on whether he should have been equally tough and loving or whether he focused too much on one over the other. And the more I thought about the shift in tone and perspective and structure, the more I realized any other movie that would focus on a tragedy like this would focus either on the initial act of Harrison Jr. and nothing else, or the entire movie would start with Russell's perspective having to move on from the family grief, and Harrison's side of the story would either be told through exposition or flashbacks. But this is the rare movie where before, during, and after of a family tragedy is portrayed chronologically within a film, and it's a structure that I would love to see a hell of a lot more often. And the direction, this is a visually gorgeous movie to look at. Trey Edward Schultz, I really want him to make more movies. I really wish he didn't take so damn long in between stuff from It Comes at Night or Krisha or something like that, because he has not the most unique style ever. It's very reminiscent of Terrence Malick, but this movie just proves that the best Terrence Malick movies are not actually made by him. Schultz features all of these steady cam tracking shots and lots of really trippy montages that feel more like dreams and memories as opposed to cohesive structured scenes. But the cinematography itself portrays every emotion that the characters are going through in a way that we can immediately understand. Even if we don't know these characters' names, their backstory, or what their relationship is to each other, just watching them on screen live their lives and nothing else is more than enough.
Coming in at number 7 here, I've got a recent film. When did this come out? 2022. So this is a 2022 film. It blew me away. Oh, it's 2021. The Blu-ray came out in 2020. I was at Walmart one day, and I had seen this movie, played it for 2 days at the cinema. Or maybe it was a week. And I would always go in to see people's reaction, because like, this movie is not for everyone. This movie is at its core a drama. It does have horror elements, but that's very few and far between. The first 20 minutes is a test, and then the rest is relationship drama. Titan. Love Titan. Like, really, really love Titan. I cannot tell you how much I love this movie. We get to see, at the beginning, this girl who gets in a car crash, and she gets this, like, badly damaged head, so they put this robot metal thing in her head to make sure she can do all this. And we see her basically wandering around homeless, murdering people brutally. Like, some of the, it's a lot for people. I mean, I remember when we were playing it at the Princess when I used to work there, and the people would come out, and there was this particular sequence with a stool and a body, and you could hear like a progressive groan in the entire audience, and they're like, oh. And oh my goodness, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. So we get to see her basically like go on the run as a fugitive because she kills a bunch of people in like the most brutal way you can possibly imagine. Just imagine it, because what I can say is not gonna do that. So she goes on the run, and she disguises herself as this missing boy, and he's a police captain or whatever. So he brings her home, and she's trying to escape and all this stuff. But in the meantime, like, there is like, to describe the violence in this film is very limited, but it's very impactful. We first get to see like, so much with a stool, beating people to death. She's like trying to self-abort her own kid, and the most horrifying sequence is not anything you'd think like that's horrifying, that's horrible. She's trying to wrap her pregnant stomach. It looks so painful. And eventually she and this guy just get along like father and daughter with fights and stuff. And then the ending is freaking weird, and she's like sex with a fire truck or something. It's super strange. Like, you've never seen anything like Titan. When I watched this, I put it on, my wife sat down to watch it. She's like, I never want to see that again. So, viewer discretion is advised. Yeah, she has like a weird oil baby. I don't know what this is, but it's brilliant because there's the father-daughter connection, and it's perfection. It's absolutely perfection the way it's portrayed. It's this really father-daughter drama. Two people taking care of each other. He's an older alcoholic, she's younger and homeless, and it's absolutely flawless. It literally made me tear up because of their relationship. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, but incredibly violent at points.
Number 6 will probably be the most controversial pick I have on my list because the people who don't like it utterly despise it. They feel it exploits Marilyn Monroe's life and supposedly glorifies the injustices that she faced in Hollywood and society in general. But I still think Blonde was a terrific movie. I'll admit the abuse she goes through, that's portrayed on screen anyways, is graphic and not for the faint of heart, but I genuinely don't consider this exploitation for one specific reason. Blonde focuses almost exclusively on the personal life of Norma Jean off camera, so much so to the point where there were a bunch of scenes of her watching her own movies, and I genuinely forgot I was watching a portrayal of an actress, a global icon of all things. We actually spend more time observing the personal relationships of her life and how her traumatic childhood has led her to have this dependency for love and attention that naturally does lead her down a dark path like it casually would. Depending on how much of it is true, because that's another thing. It's based off of a fictional novel where the true life aspects, such as Joe DiMaggio being an abusive husband, were already common knowledge at that point. And there's only one sex scene that is meant to be sexy. It's this threesome where she's making love to the two people in her life that have consistently from beginning to end always wanted what was best for her and nothing else. The rest, for every scene where you find her hot, there are 2 or 3 more where seeing the other way people just gawk at her and look at her as an object make you genuinely feel dirty for seeing her as eye candy, even though you acknowledge she's a genuine human being. It's one of the few biopics that actually doesn't shy away from the harsh realities of its real-life subject, and the first one I've seen since I'm Not There, the Bob Dylan story, to portray its story visually. Everything from the changing aspect ratios, going from black and white to color, a variety of different camera angles, like frequent dolly zooms, body cam shots. This is a surprisingly trippy as hell movie where psychological drama turns into psychological horror on numerous occasions, and it made for an extremely surreal, suspenseful ride. The symphonic score from Nick Cave and haunting sound design where a bulb from a camera hitting the ground actually felt like the shell case of a bullet. It was intense. And the one thing that everyone can agree upon, Ana de Armas fucking killed it as Marilyn Monroe. It's the best performance I've seen all year. She perfectly embodies the persona of Marilyn Monroe, along with the supposed personal life of what Norma Jean must have been like. She completely disappeared into this performance. I know she's getting a Golden Globe nomination, but I would love to see her get some Oscar recognition, assuming the Academy can acknowledge that she is a genuinely great part about it. And like I said, you don't condone every choice that she makes, but you understand the pain that motivates her decisions, and you genuinely wish she could have found someone who loved her for who she was rather than what she looked like.
Coming in at number 6, I got myself a number 6. Let's talk about this. Sabotage. Not to be, I'll put it backwards, not to be confused with Saboteur from 42. This is Sabotage from 36. This is probably Hitchcock's, one of my top 10 favorite Hitchcock films. And there's another one that's appearing later in the list, so here's my random VHS copy. But let's bask in the glory of the Laserdisc. Oh, look at the mighty Laserdisc. It's big and shiny. No, but seriously, Sabotage. There's a lot of early Hitchcock, and I know, if you don't know what a Laserdisc is, it's this. It's a giant freaking vinyl. It's double-sided, auto flips. Really annoying to handle too, because if you get smudges on it, you're like, what? And this is a Criterion Laserdisc. They did this. Everyone did this. So Sabotage follows this sort of disruptive father and his plan to plant a bomb at a movie theater. And as he goes about his day, he uses people in his life to achieve his goals. He uses his wife. They have a bad relationship. And the ending is like, wow. It's brilliantly acted, brilliantly directed. It's one of Hitchcock's really early masterpieces. Like, if you go with early Hitchcock, Man Who Knew Too Much, brilliant, you know? You've got Lodger, his very first feature is absolutely incredible. And one day I will talk about that. That's a silent film. It's meant to be like a sort of commentary, I guess, on the Jack the Ripper. And that one's really, really good. And you've got a few other films sprinkled in there, but Sabotage is when he came into his own. Man Who Knew Too Much, I love, but a lot of people don't love that one. But this is where Hitchcock figured it out. Because after this, he did like Secret Agent, and he did Strangers on Train and all that stuff. And again, he started to like pick up. And I'm a big Hitchcock fan. If you didn't know, I like Hitchcock. How did you know? But the way it unravels this mystery and the way this bomb is planted, and then you see this, like, it's really at the core, this family unraveling, a family relationship falling apart. And you see the father and the mother and the kid all drifting apart in different ways. And it's really, really brilliantly acted. The use of shadows is incredible. I mean, I'm very inspired by this type of filmmaking, this film noir. This is definitely in the film noir. I wonder what number this is in the catalog. I never really looked. But I'm happy to have the Criterion Laserdisc. If you haven't seen Saboteur, I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. You want to watch Lodger, Man Who Knew Too Much, and then you want to go right to Sabotage. And then, like, Secret Agent's okay, but then once you hit, like, late 40s, 45, then you're really hitting Hitchcock. This is, like, his first masterpiece. I don't even know what the casing is on this. But Hitchcock just got the use of shadows, the actors, the director. It's a really well done movie. It only runs for about an hour and 40. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just really, really darn good. But you're looking at, people look at the birds, and they look at Psycho and Vertigo and North by Northwest. I love those. But there is other Hitchcock in the world, y'all. Other Hitchcock. Editor Josh here. You've reached the halfway point of the show. And this is the part where I tell you about all the cool stuff. Check out Tyler's channel. Gonna be linked in the description there. 2S with fucking fantastic. Tyler Wolff movie reviews. You know the deal. Check out PB&J if you love comedy. We're looking to come back to that. We're shooting some new stuff soon. Me, Ben, and company. Being chaotic, being neutral. Check out 3 of the Best. That's where I have all my short films, my feature films, all that good stuff. We got like 13,000 views as of right now when I'm recording it. This is what the day. It's the day. And Dream in Black and White got a bunch of good stuff. But check all that out, and let's get back to the show. Coming in at number 5, we have Stalag 17. This is going to be a war drama. A lot of war movies on here. This is World War II. This is set at a prison camp. This is William Holden as the lead, and it is directed by Billy Wilder, who did, well, Billy Wilder did a lot of stuff. If you look up his filmography, he's one of the classic directors. I do have the VHS here, which, again, big VHS fan. Set that there, I guess, instead of I can wave my hands around. But this movie is a slow burn. It's very dramatic, obviously. There's big speeches. There's moments for characters. They get their dues. But as it plays out, we, the audience, are sitting there watching this mystery unfold. We're watching these characters take their place. Where do they stand in this sort of scapegoating, finding, what do you call, brain is blanking. It's whatever. It's late at night. Where they're trying to figure out who the traitor is, because one of the Germans has given information to them, and it stopped their escape previously. So they are trying to escape from this prison camp. And this one here heavily influenced Hogan's Heroes, which I absolutely adore. Which is really, really funny. It's one of the funniest World War II shows you're going to see. I mean, you do have McHale's Navy, which I do like, but that is a little bit of its time. That is dated, but Ergus Borgnine is absolutely excellent. Tim Conway is wonderful in that. But Stalag 17 really sort of strikes a place in my heart. There's a lot of these World War II dramas that, again, you can skip. And there's a bunch, and they're fine. And, you know, you're going to, maybe you enjoy them, maybe you don't love the genre, and that's okay. But when we break it down, we have this core group of guys. They're all hanging out in the same room. They're all doing exactly what you expect them of as prisoners, trying to escape, do this. You have our leaders. You have everyone really just working together. And it sets it in this realistic prison camp, which is the CBS backlot, which the fences they use for Hogan's Heroes. That's the one I want to go with. So the exteriors there. Is this a CBS? This is Paramount. Oh, maybe that is Paramount. I don't know who puts out Hogan's Heroes. But every little bit at the beginning, we get this escape. And we get to see them try to escape, and the prisoners are shot and killed. And then it's like, it's a mole hunt. That's the word I'm looking for. It is black and white, and I like that. It is from 1953. I'm a big sucker for old war movies. I almost put the Dirty Dozen on here, but I thought that'd be like, not quite. So we get to see the barracks, we get to see the prisoners, and everyone around is doing things. There are always one guy's trying to sell things to the soldiers, one guy's a telescope to look in at the German women who come to the fence. One guy is just a guy who wants to make coffee, one guy wants to play a game. They're all very simple characters, they're all very things we can relate to. And like I said, you really sort of have to watch this movie because I'm going to spoil it if I talk too much. And I really think you should see Stalag 17. I don't know where it's streaming. My house, I guess. But fantastic performances by William Holden, and then Peter Graves of Mission Impossible fame is in this. And there's some really great monologues and some just incredible moments where you get to see the characters express themselves, talk about, why they didn't do it, who did it. I mean, the reveal is very well done. It's a very well put together. It is very layered in the Agatha Christie, Poirot sort of murder mystery, Sherlock Holmes elements, but in a prison camp. And it's got Billy Wilder's brilliant direction behind it. The cinematography is really well done. The sound design is good. And you get to see people clash. And I love the main radio guy. I believe that's William Holden off the top of my head. My brain is blanking on the... No, it's the kid. Yeah. But it's absolutely fun. I really don't want to spoil it. So go watch Stalag 17.
Number 5 is The Red Turtle and is an extremely simple story. A man is stranded on a desert island, can't leave because this giant red turtle keeps sabotaging the ships he builds to escape. What stands out is that aside from the man shouting for any signs of life or perhaps calling out for help from any ship within the sea, there isn't a single line of dialogue. At an hour and 20 minutes, this story could have been so slow, boring, and repetitive, but the movie's written in an episodic way where every scene has its own beginning, middle, and end, and once it's finished, the screen fades to black, fades back in, and from then on, each scene has a brand new obstacle for the main character to overcome, or a different way of interpreting what this movie could really be about, because there is so much imagery where you can say it represents the way mankind coexists with nature, when humans need natural resources to survive versus when humans should just give back to nature, or about the loneliness our main character is experiencing. How human beings can't survive without each other, something portrayed beautifully the way the movie examines the relationship that he had with his wife and son. And speaking of beautiful, this is some of the most distinct animation from a Studio Ghibli film, where the designs and textures have more of this rustic, sketchy look to it, where you have vibrant colors with the blue skies, oceans, lush green bamboo forests that just make the island look utterly amazing. And I can't tell you everything that works about it, but even if I were to have just seen it, I still couldn't tell you, because it does a great job of making you feel the emotions without a single word.
Coming in at number 4, surprise! We've got Clerks 2. And I know you're saying, this is a comedy, Josh. This right here is a comedy. I would actually beg to differ. This is just a standard or whatever 2-disc DVD that they put out. I think there's a Blu-ray, but you don't have bothered to upgrade. The sticker on the back I paid $250 for. They're $230. So that was a thrift store find a few months ago. I actually haven't owned it up to this date. Clerks 2 picks up where Clerks left off. And we got Randall and Dante. They're working now at the Mobies instead of the Quick Stop because it burned down. We get Jay and Silent Bob. We get the new character Elias. Don't mind me, I'm just taking off the sticker. And it's really about their dynamic, the day-to-day, working in the restaurant. And then you have... Oh, well, there's a Bluetooth speaker just doing its thing in the background. Ignore that. It's late. I'm tired. We're just going with this. Usually, I should stop talking now and start Clerks. That's what I'm going to do. It's really, really clever and funny. It's a very, very sweet romance between Rosario Dawson and Dante there. And it's just a delight. I mean, the movie is probably like, if I'm going to go Kevin Smith movies, like Clerks is up there. Mallrats is absolutely incredible. And then, like, I love Dogma. Dogma is incredible. But everything else, I'm just like, I like you, Kevin Smith, but I don't love it as much. And Clerks 2 is definitely going to be in the top 5. I think that Clerks 1, 2, and 3 is a really good trilogy, building on each other. Because obviously Clerks 1 has the iconic moment with Taco Shark, and not every woman brings you meatloaf to work, and, Chulies and all that stuff. But I think this one brings a lot of daring to its comedy. Because a lot of films are very, very safe, and they're not meant to offend, and all that stuff. But this one here, pushes the envelope of what a joke can be. But it's also incredibly dramatic while doing that joke. It handles the sensitive material with, a sense of, this is important, we're talking about it, or we're doing something dumb, but one of the characters, usually Dante or Elias, is going to bring it down. I mean, you've got the iconic Lord of the Rings where the guy walks in, one ring to rule them all, one ring, and the really great scene. You got Wanda Sykes making a wonderful cameo in here. You got Jay and Silent Bob just doing what they do best, selling drugs. That's pretty much what they do. And I love the addition of Elias. He really adds to the group dynamic in this. As in Clerks 3, I didn't really love what they did with the character, but in this one, he's very consistent. He's very funny. They write on the little computer. Do you remember the computers, that you'd get at, the McDonald's where you could, do a web search or whatever next to GameCube or thing, whatever, where you play Mario Kart? They bring that in, and the food sucks, and they take off work to, it's exactly what you expect from Clerks, but the writing is the sharpest Kevin Smith has ever been. This is the best written Kevin Smith film, in my opinion. Because a lot of films get sloppy and fan service, but this one is heartbreaking and beautiful, and there's a love triangle going on, but it's just, and then 3/4 of the way through you get an ABC dance number in this, and it's nice, refreshing to the content we just saw, because they're really trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their life. Every Clerks movie, it's what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Sort of like the opening of Twisted Sister. What do you want to do with your life? Remember that video? Maybe you don't. I was a big fan of Twisted Sister when I was a kid. I absolutely loved Twisted Sister. But this is truly underrated in the Kevin Smith things. People are going to say Clerks is better. People are going to say I love Dogma or Chasing Amy. But this this is fantastic. This is the best written Kevin Smith movie. It's dramatic. It's more dramatic than funny. There's more drama than, it's really dark. I mean, Clerks 3 goes even darker, which if you're a fan of Clerks, really the movie's only going to hit if you love Clerks 1 and 2. That's really what it comes down to. It's going to be more Clerks 2 than Clerks 1 for Clerks 3. Clerks 2. Can't go wrong with Clerks.
Number 4 is another movie told mainly through silence, The Tribe, which is about a deaf boarding school in Ukraine where nearly all the students and teachers are basically a mafia. Younger kids steal and launder money, older kids are either thieves, prostitutes, or pimps, and teachers run the show. The story itself centers on a new kid who slowly becomes a delinquent as he rises the ranks and falls in love with one of his hookers. And The Tribe is distinct from, honestly, a lot of movies about deaf people where there's technically dialogue and conversations, but we don't get any subtitles, no voiceover narration, or any actual talking. The movie completely relies on sign language and body language to tell its story and character arcs, and it's insane how this director, whose name I'm not even going to try on that one, he makes it so seamless with one simple directing strategy. Literally every scene in the movie is told in a long take, but the story within each scene always has a beginning, middle, and end. In the beginning, characters go from place to place building up the mystery as to what's happening. The middle is two characters establishing the power struggle between them. And the end focuses on who wins such power. It's such an original way of putting you into the mindset of the characters where the ambient sound design and the lack of talking. The first conversation I had with anyone after watching the movie felt like a reminder that that wasn't really the way things worked. And it also served as a cautionary tale about how desperate people are to fit in with their community and the consequences of conforming to tribalism as opposed to being your own individual self, especially if you're young.
Number 3 is going to be possibly in my top 10 movies of all time now. My movies for my top 10 always change. This is one of my favorite actors of all time. He always makes me laugh. But when he does a drama, which he does a couple times, he plays a used car salesman in, which is really, really good. And I absolutely adore that film. He's just ruthless. But in being there, I don't think a lot of people know about this movie. I think when it came out, it was critically acclaimed. People loved Peter Sellers. It was one of his last best roles. Because, I mean, what was his next role? Like, Trail of the Pink Panther, and then there's a lawsuit, and they just use archive footage. But this is his greatest role. It's an observation more than a film. You watch Peter Sellers play Chansey the gardener. And an old man dies in a house where he's been living for years, and he's the gardener, and he takes care of all that stuff. And as you watch him leave this house, he just walks away. Doesn't even really say much. When they come to interview him for the house, they're like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm the gardener." "Well, let me show you the garden." And that's really the only interaction you get. So he leaves, and he eventually gets caught up in this big presidential vice president battle where he befriends the vice president who's aging and old, gets to know his daughter, lives in a big fancy house, and we really don't see or really don't hear or see Sellers speak. We are witnessing through his eyes. We get to see him go on TV, talk about gardening in this really sweet late night moment, and it's just I think it's just relaxing to watch. Because, like, the first 10 minutes, you're going to be sitting there being like, okay, this one's on Crave, I believe, if you're in Canada. I shipped 2 copies of this. I have the really cool silver copy from the old school days. But that's over there, and I'm over here, and you get the picture. And then you get to see Chansey the gardener like give advice, and you get to see him fall in love, but he doesn't want to fall in love. He likes to watch, and you get to really explore moments of his sexuality, and you get to explore moments of him learning things. And it ends on this beautiful shot of him just floating away. And I really don't know what it all means. It's one of the absolute best. I mean, you've got Shirley MacLaine in here. I really do like Some Came Running. I think that is a divided movie with Dean Martin and Shirley MacLaine and stuff. But that movie is a little bit long and divided and feels almost like 2 movies, but I still really, really love that one from 58. But this one here with Shirley MacLaine, yeah. I mean, Shirley MacLaine's never been my cup of tea, but in this one, she's fantastic. And then the person who plays the president, and there's an element of comedy at points where the president wants to know who Chansey is, and no one can find out who he is. They don't know anything about him. You don't know about the character. Like, it's not about the character. It's about this journey he's taking, and then it's done, and it's perfect. And a lot of people are going to point to Peter Sellers and say, well, there's The Party. I love The Party. I think it's great. I think it's a funny movie. Yes, it's dated and has some stereotypes and whatever, but it's whatever. I'm not going to go back and remake a movie and change history. Then you have Pink Panther. He did like 6 of those, and I love the first Pink Panther. And I love Shot in the Dark. I think it's probably the best in the franchise. I mean, you've got Pink Panther Returns, which is really funny with the breaks in the golf cart in there. I mean, you've got Revenge of the Pink Panther, which is really good. Strikes Back is the funniest, but objectively the most meandering, where Dreyfuss does that, and that's really good. You've got What's New Pussycat, which I like, and you've got a lot of roles in there that you could say, but I don't think you can say Peter Sellers is dramatic in those, and I don't think you're saying he's doing his best. But in this one here, it's heartwarming, it's therapeutic, it's a joy to watch. I've seen this probably about 20 times now. I mean, I've wore out a VHS copy already. Not hard to do because VHS are old, dated. But this is an absolutely incredible film. I've never quite seen anything like it. I don't think we'll ever get anything like it again. And the director brings a really unique vision. I wrote his name down here. Who did it? Hal Asbury. He worked on Harold and Maude, and then the excellent In the Heat of the Night. Regardless of what you think of Harold and Maude, I'm not a huge fan, but I think there's an artistic place for that. But In the Heat of the Night is really, really well done. I've got a VHS shoved down somewhere in the pile there. You can't really see it, but there's just VHS behind me. I need to watch. I saw In the Heat of the Night on the big screen a while back, and absolutely incredible. Just really great, well done film, and Hal Asbury delivers again with being there. This was one of his really big last films, and this is Peter Sellers' big last film. And I honestly recommend that you watch this movie over anything on this list. Like, everything else is my personal preference, but this is like the pick the audience should sit down and watch. This is beautifully shot. The sound design is wonderful. It's just so darn good. It's underrated. And I know a lot of people saying it's got a high rating on a lot of stuff, but if you're new to movies, and this is why I say it's underrated, if you're new to film, or you're a kid and you're trying to figure out what to watch, you're grabbing the DC, the Marvels, the animated movies, you grab The Godfather, Titanic, all the iconic ones, Jurassic Park, and maybe Pink Panther pops up in there somewhere. But this one doesn't often come up in conversation. No one's like, have you seen Being There?
Number 3 may not sound like an underrated movie considering it was a decent hit, critics enjoyed it, and Tom Hanks got what probably will be the last ever Oscar nomination, but generally when I talk about A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with friends, they all kind of sigh and go, yeah, it's not as good as the documentary, and I can understand that. Personally, I think of them on an equal level in terms of tugging at your heartstrings, but for me, what makes this stand out from Will You Be My Neighbor is that we get to see the power of Mr. Rogers' influence by watching someone's life be changed forever through this interaction with Rogers, and not just any person, a grown adult. When we think of Mr. Rogers, it's always from watching him when we were in kindergarten, but the movie wisely points out that the struggles adults go through make it easy to forget the things we learned as kids that can help us deal with the pain, but also reminding us that the reason Mr. Rogers connected with kids was because he treated us like we were adults. He wasn't afraid to explain what assassination means or to address 60s color barriers, but always in a way kids could understand without being spoon-fed or traumatized. And while Tom Hanks is really the only choice I can think of to play Mr. Rogers, and again, judging by the Man Called Otto trailer, it's probably the last good performance we'll ever get out of him. It's just sad. It's really Matthew Rhys who shines as this journalist capable of compassion and does have loved ones in his life, but he's too afraid to face his past, and as a result kind of takes it out on the people who are willing to help him, including the people who have wronged him and want to redeem themselves. That is until he's forced to interview Rogers, and as stubborn as he is, he slowly realizes having people comfort and apologize to you is only half the grieving process. The other is you being willing to express every difficult emotion that comes with it. I cried at the same time 3 times during the last half every single time I watched it, and I don't really see that stopping anytime soon.
Coming in at number 2, I got a French-Brazilian film. Let me surprise you with my art house picks here. We're getting artsy. We're getting really... Bukaru. Absolutely adore this. When I worked at the Princess Cinemas, which I'm doing a lot of freelance stuff now and trying to make a name for myself and do that. So if you need anybody, I'll do your sound, I'll act. I really want to be a creative person. This was one of the movies we played for 2 days. It's Bukaru. It's a French-Brazilian film, and I wrote down their name so I don't get this wrong. Directed by, let's see here, Jumalo Dornelles, sorry if I butchered your name, and Kebler Mendesso. But it's really, really well done. And it is probably the longest movie on this list, because a lot of the other ones are shorter. I love the artwork here. It is super indie. Should have been nominated for Best Foreign Picture that year, 2019, but that was a stacked year. So Bukaru is a small village in Brazil. There's a doctor, there's kids, there's families. They're all over the place. They live there. It's the place where they live. But there is a shortage of water. There's no water. You have to bring it in by truck and all of this. So you get to see this town operate and live for the first 20 minutes as this person returns to town. You get to see the school. You get to see Judgmental. And we get to experience this sort of funeral at the beginning there. And the first moment that really hooked me in this movie was when we get to see, I believe it's a doctor. I think it's a doctor there. One of the more outsider people, or just came to the village by accident. We don't know how they got there. It doesn't really matter how they got there. It doesn't need to explain anything. This is an experience. This is an experience of drama. At the funeral, start to freak out and yell at one of the people as they're doing this. She's just losing her mind. She's grief-ridden. She just loses her mind. And we're like, okay, well, here's the dynamic of the village. They talk it out. We see the people. And I think that in this movie, it does an excellent job of establishing all of its side characters. Every person in this movie has a role to play. There's the outsider person who has to come back and help them in the end. And we establish him really well with a few lines of dialogue. He's a well-rounded character. The doctor is well-rounded. The school teacher is well-rounded. The kids, you understand the kids' motivation. Like, you don't have to sit around and do monologue after monologue after monologue, because it's just a town. And you can picture, you live in a small town, you know, there's a guy down the street who complains and calls the cops on you. You've got all these different people and all the things they do, and it's like you can just picture it. You can take your town, take your neighborhood, take your block, and put the pieces together. And then you're like, okay, that's that so-and-so, and that's here. And it does a really good job of setting that up. But then we get to see, is it Terrence Malick? Or what's his name? He's been in a bunch of stuff. What's his name? Anyway, he's been in a bunch of films. He's very famous. The guy at the top right there. He assembles an elite squad of people to go and wipe out this town. Why? We don't know. And so as these people are trying to take out people, we get the town experiencing UFOs, these flying drones they call UFOs. And they think they're UFOs and they're doing this. And the town starts to get suspicious, and we start to understand more of this town and this village and how they're going to do it. So then, and this is all the plot I'm going to give away, because this is a really slow movie and you really have to be in the mood for it, but I think it's a highly recommendation here. We get to see this group of hunters basically argue around a table, and they take out this small child in the village, just shoot a kid, and they're arguing about, should we shoot this kid, should we do this? And then it just sort of goes from there, and the town is, there's like, it reminds me of like a road movie, not like Road to Hong Kong or Bali or anything like that, but like the 1968 road movies, like Monkey's Head, where it's a bunch of loose philosophical ideas put together, but with a plot, or Easy Rider, or Five Easy Pieces, or Cinema Paradiso, or something like that, where it's a very one location, very, well, I guess Easy Pieces moves, and so does Easy Rider, but it's a very simple premise, and we don't know why. Things just happen. It's a very 1968 style of filmmaking. The acting is absolutely fantastic, and I love the ending. It's absolutely pitch perfect for this film. You're never gonna quite see anything like Bukaru. This is not an expensive Blu-ray. They do have it on Criterion sometime. I highly recommend it. It's not a more experiences of the why, but how can you experience this film? You're sitting back and watching a village try to take care of itself. That's all you need to know. That's it. And that's the entire premise. I mean, there's a couple side characters like the mayor who's trying to do this and that. And we don't know what his motivations are. He only shows up for a couple scenes. I really don't want to spoil too much of the last half because I've only talked about the first 15 minutes. It's a very long movie. It's like 2.5 hours. 2 hours and 11 minutes, I think. Yeah, it's long, but it's so good. Like, if I was a film school teacher, I would teach this film. This film is just, you could interpret it in any way. You could enjoy it as a movie. You could enjoy it as, per se, as a thriller piece. You could enjoy it as a character piece. There's just so many layers and layers, and this is one of the best directed films in the last 10 years.
Back in 21, I put Ordinary People as my favorite movie to win Best Picture at the Oscars, and I stand by that, partially because this is one of the few Best Picture winners most people have forgotten about, and it kind of makes sense. It's a smaller scale movie about a family dealing with the loss of a son and the attempted suicide of another. It's not as stylistic as the previous movies I mentioned. The themes about grief and mental health, you've really seen this stuff before, but out of all the movies on this list, it's one of, if not the most relatable. And a lot of that comes down to the incredible cast. Donald Sutherland, Mary Tyler Moore, and Judd Hirsch all got Oscar nominations, and deservedly so. Moore and Hirsch had a lot more to prove as they were strictly sitcom stars at the time, but they show a wide range nobody was expecting. Moore going from her kind, outgoing persona to this cold-hearted, distant parent, and Hirsch was perfect as a psychiatrist who knows when to be tough and when to be comforting. But Timothy Hutton, in this film, in his debut at age 20, becoming the youngest Best Supporting Actor winner, was phenomenal. Not entirely sure why he's supporting. Everything revolves around his arc, but at the same time, that's what makes the emotional heart of the film. The conversations he has with his parents remind you of all the worst arguments you ever had with your folks, but also the times you were too afraid to tell them what was wrong when they were genuinely trying to help. And his one-on-one therapy sessions with Hirsch, the last one serving as the movie's climax, will make you flood the room. I do every single time. It's consistently sad, but as the movie points out, pain is a necessary part of life, and in order to help us grow, and if we can't feel pain, we won't be able to feel anything. And this movie made me feel everything.
All right. It's time for number one. Number one, Phantom of the Carriage. Because, of course, I picked a 1921 Swedish silent film. And you're thinking, a silent film? Yeah. I love silent films. I am working my way through Greed. I've watched a bunch of the old stuff. I really think that there is a medium in silent films. I think there's a case to be made for them, more than just between Harold Lloyd's Safety Last, or whatever that one's called, and, like Charlie Chaplin and such. There is a case for silent films being really, 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 really brilliant art that you have never seen, that you have just never seen. There's a lot of underrated silent films, and one of these days we'll do a list, because you saw the VHS earlier, but I bought a bunch of silent films, and I've been going through, and I've been intrigued with their facial expressions and the way they do the makeup and the way they do the sets, and the lighting can be different. You've got 3 or 4 shades of black and white. You've got like a black and blue, you've got like a black and gray, you've got there's so much you can do with this medium. And to be able to tell a story without audio, just strictly through your emotions and a few text bubbles, is incredible. And this may be, it's not going to be like my favorite silent film, but for the sake of this list, it is a very dramatic film. It's an underrated drama. So it's New Year's Eve. Our main character, played by the director who directed and wrote and starred in this, Victor Sostorm, sorry if I got your name wrong, dies. He dies and he wakes up. And as he wakes up, he sees death coming towards him in a carriage. This phantom rider, and he comes towards him, and he just stops, and he gets out. We're in a graveyard. It's really well lit. We get this fantastic, transparent effect. Really, really early special effects. Cannot understate how cool this special effect is, especially for 1921. Who was doing that? I mean, you had the one with the moon, whatever, that first silent film. My brain is blanking. Trip to the Moon, or Voyage to the Moon, or something like that. And he is given one last chance to influence basically the next generation to be a good person. Very, it's a wonderful life at the time. But he gets to go back and he gets to basically try to convince this person to live. So he goes to a small house and he meets a girl who works for the Salvation Army. And he's a homeless guy and he's grumpy and he doesn't want to be there. And there's so many elements playing into his characterization that you get to see this man basically fully transformed by the kindness of this woman. Despite, let's take for example, he comes into, he's homeless, he's trying to be good to his family. So he goes in and he meets the Salvation Army woman, and she gives him a place to sleep. They've opened a new, I guess, like soup kitchen hotel sort of thing for homeless. And she sews his coat. And she sews it as he sleeps, and they try to fix his boots. And when he wakes up, he's extremely angry. He tears his coat open. He marches out of there. And it's like the first experience, it breaks this woman. It's honestly heartbreaking to watch this woman put all this work into helping this guy, and he just tears her to shreds. And then you get this reaction of the other person who's working there. It's just like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that. It's just like, what is your kindness good for? What is this good for? It's very grounded, very human, very emotional, and without a single ounce of dialogue, because the slides only come once in a while, and they have different slides, which is good, so it's not just like the same slide. So you really, really feel for this person, and as he starts to take this into account, and as he starts to live his life more and tries to see his wife as he's not, trying to be a good husband, and his kids and the fate of it, you really see this person get to him. And it's fantastic. I cannot recommend Phantom of the Carriage enough. This is Criterion, only way I could get it. There's a little insert here. Like, Ingrid Bergman was very influenced by this film. It was one of the first films he saw. So there's a little write-up and some interviews with him on here. But if you could take a look, there's the carriage here. This carriage is featured in maybe about 5-6 minutes of the film. But the special effect is incredible. The way this carriage can come towards a person, the way it can move, where he's death itself and he has a time limit and he's going to die, but he is death, trying to convince people not to be death. I know that sounds confusing, but yeah, he's going to become death if he doesn't basically save his family. But it's honestly genuinely scary. Like, the way they light these sequences of death is, I've never seen anything like this. This is like John Carpenter looked at this film and said, that's how I'm going to light Friday the 13th or Halloween or whatever. Halloween, that's the one. It's lit like a film noir, but with horror elements. It's absolutely incredible. And it does play into themes of alcoholism and abuse and family trauma and all that stuff. And it's just, I've never seen anything quite like it. Go watch The Phantom Carriage. Just watch silent films. Give them a shot. I really think that black and white is not overrated. I don't think there's any realm of film that we can't explore at this point. I mean, everyone's going to watch all the modern classics, Godfather, Pulp Fiction, Jurassic Park, all those types of things. And that's great. I love Jurassic Park. I think it's fantastic. I've watched that one quite frequently, actually. I like Jurassic Park 2 and 3 more than I probably should. But this film, the first time I sat and watched it, I thought I'll put it on the background. I'll watch for some framing, and I bought it for mostly just, let's see how they visually display this without audio. How are they framing this? It was more of an exercise in directing, in learning cinematography, and just trying to always constantly keep myself up to date. And this was the first silent film I've watched in years, since like Chaplin or something. Maybe Harold Lloyd, or who's, did a dinner theater way back in the day and played silent films because we were a silly silent film, and I watched a bunch of those at that time. And they were really funny, and I like the one with the train. It's great, the Great Train Robbery and stuff. But I'm just blown away at how human this film is, at how incredible this film is. And I think if we don't explore film farther than our genres, we're sort of stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck in this rut where we want another superhero movie. We want another animated movie. We want another drama. We want another rom-com with Sandra Bullock. And there's nothing wrong with staying in your field, staying in your lane, doing your sort of thing. But we need to fully explore film, especially if you're creative. If you're creative in any type, and I'm sure Tyler does this too, We go see different movies. Me and Tyler, there's a review up that you can see. We went to see Ultraman, Shin Ultraman. I've been an Ultraman fan forever, but well, since 2017, so that's like 5 years. I don't know if that's forever, so not forever. But I wasn't really open to that at the time, and I was just like, so I was working on the Great American Novel that I was shooting right after I had shot for Saving Grace, which if you haven't seen, it's on the channel somewhere, I'm sure. And this one guy, he's just like, hey, you seen this Ultraman? He invited me to this marathon. It was great. And I opened my eyes to it. And as I'm watching Phantom of the Carriage and I'm watching this silent film, I'm thinking, why do we put ourselves in a film box? Why are we like, hey, why are we just watching the films that we like? I'm sure there's times to watch films you like. But at the end of the day, are you expanding your film theory? Are you trying to watch new films? Are you watching experimental films? Have you sat and watched the Empire State Building for like 2 hours and really just considered the art of it? You know? Because if you're creative, you need to constantly be creative. And if you're always inputting the same input, what do you bring out of it? The exact same thing. But if you're always inputting different things, your style is a reflection of the art itself. And that's really what I'm trying to do. So for me, Phantom of the Carriage really suits that. And this film sat with me for a very, 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 very long time. It was one of those shows or the movies where I was like, wow. I didn't expect a silent film to make an impact on that. Like, I was expecting to enjoy it, but it just, like, what is your life worth is the movie gives this. And it's really dark, and I dare any movie to stand up to Phantom of the Carriage today with the same subject matter that does the same sort of thing. Because you can't do that again. It's a time and place where it's done to perfection. I dare say this is a perfect movie. You really don't get better than Phantom of the Carriage. And the impact it left on me, like, I was thinking about it for days. I gave it to my dad to watch. My dad, the previous movies he'd watched was like NCIS and The Stuff and like a crappy Killer Kuwait movie, and he'd watch a Chuck Norris film and like, you know what I mean? But I gave him this film and he's like, oh, well, let me watch it, right? So he said, sure, I'll watch this. I told him he should watch it and he came back to me and he's like, wow. Like, that's the impact this film has. Phantom of the Carriage is absolutely incredible. It's like a $20 Criterion too, so like, go pick it up.
This will come as no surprise to number one that it is when Marnie was there, but what can I say? This movie has a lot of sentimental value to it because this was the first movie where I analyzed its imagery, characterization, and themes entirely on my own, doing the best not to look up what others thought of it and to think for myself. And every day for at least a month or so, I kept discovering something brand new that made me love the movie even more. And again, to talk about the movie in full would be spoiling a lot, but it centers on a lonely young girl named Anna spending a summer with relatives, and once there becomes friends with this mysterious girl named Marnie about her age. And as they spend time together, they help each other come to terms with the grief they've experienced within their lives. Haley Steinfeld and Kiernan Shipka in the English dub give phenomenal voice work. Steinfeld has to switch from being sad, angry, and fearful, which she does seamlessly, without ever feeling needy. She's not trying to make her problems everyone else's, and that's actually a reason why she keeps to herself out of fear that people either might not help or might not even be willing, which is a pretty identifiable feeling. And Shipka's voice is just so charming and comforting as the one who primarily passes down advice and wisdom. And you get the sense her friendship with Anna is a way of helping her move on from her own past struggles. The movie has some of the best animation I've ever seen that's as bright, vibrant, and colorful as any other Studio Ghibli flick. The color blue especially is used in so many symbolic ways to show Anna and Marnie's looming sadness through their clothes, the bright lakes and skies surrounding their town, and both of their gorgeous-looking blue eyes. Every shot is gorgeous and feels like a portrait where, just looking at one image through the composition and expressions of the characters, I can instantly understand and, more importantly, feel the emotions they're going through in the moment. I'm always at a loss of words describing how much I love this film, but as often as I can say, it is a beautifully bittersweet film. Check it out if you haven't already.
That's it for the Josh and Tyler show. Be sure to check out our Shin Ultraman trailer react. That one's a lot of fun. I went on rants, like big rants. Big rants. Be sure to check out Tyler's channel with 2 F's for fucking fantastic. Got to say that at the end of the video, so YouTube just be like, age construction, whatever, stupid new rules. Check out, put a link in the description here. I have a new short film, and that's been out for 3 or 4 months. Quarter to Midnight. It's experimental, sort of avant-garde style filmmaking, because I've been studying a lot of type of filmmaking. So check that out. I'm going to throw it over to Tyler to close the show, but thank you for watching the Josh and Tyler Show.
Guys, thank you so much for watching, and thank you again to Josh for coming up with this idea, because making this video felt good. It felt a lot better than some of the last few that I've made. Let us know in the comments below what some of your most underrated dramas are. Be sure to stay tuned for more videos, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.